Warning, this is not a podcast for those who have got it together. We are men seeking answers to the questions that have plagued our mind. Can we be undefeated?
Okay, thank you for listening to our podcast. This is, I don't know what episode this is. We need to figure out what episode. This is like episode 100. No, I'm sure it's not. I'm Burl Stricker, and I'm here with Taylor Stricker, my daughter. Thank you guys for listening to our podcast, Positively Undefeated. A couple of announcements, again, that we have our not-for-profit, which this is a voice of our not-for-profit, which is called Even One Less. And if you go to our website, evenoneless.com, you can find out more information, find out more about us, how you can connect with us. Podcast is definitely one of them. Go to your favorite podcast app and follow us, review, and like us, and that helps. Also on September 16th, we are having a mixer introduction event, and it's going to be lots of fun. It's here in Elk City, Oklahoma, which is in western Oklahoma. It's at 105 South Main at the United Country Exploration Realty office. We're going to have music, fun auction, food. What else? Speakers. It's going to be fun. All right. Well, Taylor, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're my daughter.
Yeah.
Right, let's get that out of the way. My daughter. So, and I got to get this out of the way too. You're my daughter that's a twin. I don't know. I think I've been always, because I have twins, I've always been obsessed with twins. Are you obsessed with twins?
Yeah, I think twins are interesting.
I do. People always ask these questions like, do you share each other's thoughts?
Yeah.
You do?
No, yes, and I always say yes.
Yeah.
Because we just think so similarly that, like, we basically are thinking the same thing. So a lot of times, like, she'll say something and I was, like, wanting to say it. So I always say yes.
I think, you know, I feel like that, like, me and my kids, we're all a little sensitive. You know, I think I'm a sensitive person a little bit. Or I can be, right? I try not to be so sensitive. But do you notice when, like, you've hurt Kenzie's feelings?
Yeah, it's easy to tell.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you remember when we were having lunch or something and you were like, I was here to see Grant, your boyfriend, and she didn't realize you were there in town to see her to see Grant, and then she didn't get to see you. Do you remember that? She kind of looked at you like, I didn't know you were here. You remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
I just wonder if you felt that she was hurt.
I feel like most of the time I can tell. It's pretty easy.
It's funny because I like, as obsessed as I feel like I am about twins because of y'all, but also I feel like that y'all have very unique personalities that are different. Mm-hmm. You know, and sometimes I try to be an advocate for that you guys have different personalities and that you're your own individual and that it's not always Kenzie and Taylor, but what is Taylor doing and what is Kenzie doing, and, you know, separate individual personalities. And do you feel like that's a struggle sometimes, like separating yourself from?
I feel like it is. I feel like it took me a while to not be, like, dependent on Kenzie. Like, I had to have Kenzie to, like, do, you know, even, like, going to the store or socializing or whatever it was. I felt like I had to have Kenzie. But now that I've gotten older, I've realized, like, oh, I'm pretty independent. Like, and I don't have to have her, but I realize I don't have to have her, but it just is better to do things with her. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know how most people just do, you know, I've never had to do stuff alone. And so I don't understand that. It's hard, probably.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that you guys, like, in some instances, you've had half the experiences. I always use, like, driving. Like, if you think about it, you guys shared a vehicle in high school. You shared a vehicle through half of college. So it makes sense that you had half the driving experience that a normal person would have, because she drove half the time and you drove, if you split it in half.
Yeah.
And so you don't get, and that's just one example of, like, and then I also think about, like, I think if you're not a twin, it's easy to think, man, you went to college and you had, like, your best friend there, you had your sister there to help you through the awkwardness of like new people, so, but that is also half the experiences. You're not experiencing necessarily that, kind of being strange environment, being new around new people and not having, somebody there to share it with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you just graduated nursing school. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That was how big of accomplishment do you think that? I mean, do you feel like that was?
I finished, and literally ever since I finished, I thought that's like the biggest accomplishment that I've ever accomplished, like the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I feel like not many things in my life I can say this about, but like I have never worked harder for anything. And so like, and I didn't realize this, but that's a really good feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone should do something in their life like that, because I was able to do a lot more than I thought I could. Like I had very low expectations of what I thought I could do. And so it definitely was a good feeling.
Well, I think also like, not that like just going to nursing school is bad, but you're talking about earning your bachelor's degree and completing nursing school. Those are two major accomplishments, that definitely be proud of. So do you think that like, they usually nursing school only graduates like 50% of the class? What do you think the graduation rate was in y'all's nursing school? Just if you had to guess.
Yeah, so I think we started off with like 60, and then we graduated with like 42 or something. And so we had a lot drop off. Most of were like the first semester. And it was just like, I kind of like the whole time was like, I'm lucky to be here. I have to work hard every day to get to be here, because like people that I didn't expect to would drop out. Like it was a very common thing. And so you definitely can't just go and not like want to be there or want to try, because you probably won't be able to stay in there,
Yeah. I think that like, what's it called? NCLEX? Is that the
NCLEX? Yeah.
NCLEX. How was that test? You passed it the first time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, but how do you think that test was? I'm like somebody listening who hasn't taken that test. What's your thoughts on that test?
I was very nervous going into it, just because, so like I was taking like the new NCLEX. So we were the first group to take like a different type of NCLEX. So I didn't really know what to expect, but I like did a study course, and I felt like that helped. But also, honestly, going into it, I was like, I think I'm going to fail. Like I was very confidently thought that. But then going through the test, I immediately knew I was going to pass. And I think what helped me best was literally just like the 2 years of nursing school, like everything. I was prepared long ago. Like I didn't know that, but like when I was taking the test, I was like, I learned all of this in nursing school. I learned all of it when I was at clinical. And so like, just, you can rest assured, like you can be confident and have peace and know that like they're preparing you whether you know it or not, you know?
Yeah. And I think that people that live in Western Oklahoma don't give SWOSU enough. Southwestern Oklahoma State, for people who don't know what that is, they don't give them enough credit. That is like, I think when you live locally, because you graduated high school like 45 minutes away from where you went to college.
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to say, oh, that school's not as great, or, because there's definitely bigger and more popular universities out there in Oklahoma, like Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
University of Oklahoma. And yet, SWOSU is a pretty good school.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, I think that's what I realized too is like I was able to like, if I had any questions, I knew my professors, I could talk to them. It was easy. I had personal relationships with them, and like we would hear about like bigger schools, nursing programs, and I was like, oh my goodness, like how I did not realize like how many more opportunities we get. Yeah. And like I think that I would have really struggled if I went to a bigger school, and so I really loved SWOSU's program.
I think a baseline that schools use, I don't necessarily agree with it all the time, but a baseline that schools use to determine like successfulness would be like passing rate on the NCLEX, right? So, and I think that you're a great example that the test is a national test. It's not an Oklahoma test.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you went to school and you passed it on the first time, I think that also speaks to, it worked.
Yes,
it
definitely.
worked because, if you had struggled really to take that test and it happens, some people get test anxiety or what. I don't know if you can actually get test anxiety and finish nursing school. And you know what I mean?
It would be very
you
difficult.
got tests
Yeah.
the entire time. So
yeah. Which I don't feel like I'm a good test taker at all. Like some people, they would not study very much and they would just make really good grades. I had to like really work hard, but if you're willing to do that, it's definitely, but I agree. Like if you're just constantly anxious, I don't know if you
I don't
could.
think you can even get through nursing school.
Yeah. It would be very
There's so many
difficult.
tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're having tests like weekly or multiple times a week.
Yeah. By like second year, we were having tests every week and that was very stressful. Yeah.
And like you said, most of those tests point toward being able to pass the
NCLEX. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lester, you went and did an internship in New York City. If you don't mind, just like explain like how that came about and then your experience there in New York City.
Yeah. So I was involved with the BCM at my college, which is the Baptist Collegiate Ministries. And the director there, he went up to Kinsey and I, and he told us, he's like, hey, like I know about this internship where people go and spend a summer in New York and you basically work with a church and be like a missionary there throughout the summer. Mm-hmm. And he knew that me and Kinsey were interested in missions. So he's like, would you guys be interested? And we're like, yeah, we would love that. That sounds like very cool. It sounds like something we would love to do. And so we prayed about it and we told him yes. A lot of people though, in between their junior and senior year of nursing school, they do an internship with nursing. So no matter what, we were like, we're going to go and serve with the church in New York. But we're like, what if we could do nursing on top of that? So we went and we applied to an internship there and we ended up getting it. And it was at Mount Sinai Hospital on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And so we worked with a church on the Upper West Side called Neighborhood Church. And then we worked with Mount Sinai in different units. Yeah. So we did both of those.
So what was your experience in New York City? I always say that, and I've been to New York City one time, but where we're from, I'd say the South or, let's say small rural areas that you kind of always hear your whole life negative stuff about New York City and the crime and violence and being like, very liberal. I mean, you hear all kinds of things. And and if you've never been there, then, you could really have this negative idea about New York City. But what was your experience and overall the culture of New York City and just kind of the people and whatever?
Yeah. So I would say starting out, so I went there just like on a short-term mission trip, like the spring semester before I left for the summer. Yeah. And my experience was like I would go here for a week for vacation. Like it's kind of fun, but it's stressful. It's busy. I don't know if I fit in with these type of people. Yeah. And like I went in for the summer knowing that. Like I was like, I'm just going here to do what I feel like God's called me to do. I really like it. The place means nothing to me. Like that's really what I thought. But by the end of the summer, the Lord completely changed my heart. Just for multiple things. I feel like a lot of people where we're from in Oklahoma, they have like a soft exterior, but a hard interior. So like, you could go up to anyone and be like, hi, how are you? They're super friendly. But then when you really try to get to know them, they're hard to get to know. Yeah. They don't know any personal, but a lot of people I found in New York, and this is probably other places too, but they have this hard interior or out exterior where it's like, they don't look approachable. They don't want to talk to you. They seem terrible and all this stuff. But the minute that you get to know them, they want to be known. They crave people. They crave relationships. And it's literally as simple as taking the time to get to know someone. And I thought it was like the most beautiful thing that you can be surrounded by people that are sitting there and you just have to take a little bit of time and they want you to know them. They want you to take the time to be with them and have a relationship with them. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And it just made me realize like there's a lot more to people than you see on the outside. And you can't always just tell how someone is based on the exterior. So I think that's the biggest thing that like the Lord opened my eyes to. And also just like so diverse. Such a huge city with so many different people. and so many opportunities to, for me, like that was my goal, is to share Jesus. Like there's, you want to go to like an unreached population, go to New York. There's plenty of them. And so my eyes were open to that as well.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's like, I've never thought about it the way you just said it, but that people in Oklahoma in general have like their exterior is soft, but their interior is hard. And I like completely agree with that. And then you take there where their exterior is hard and that their interior is soft. And it's funny to think about that, but I think that's like spot on. I don't know that anybody's ever said it like that, but I think it's great. I think it's true. And I think it also proves it's like when you're talking about diversity, man, if you just because you went to high school and grew up in a small town, very small, 4,000 people, still live in rural Oklahoma. And it's so easy to think that that's the world.
Yeah.
And then, and truly, not that it's not like diverse, but there's not that kind of diverseness. You know what I mean? There's not. And when you actually travel outside of your own little world, you start to realize that there is like way more out there, way more going on. And I think being exposed to that is like eye-opening. And it also, I think it all softens us a little bit too, because it's like you can relate to those people still. I think that thinking that you can't relate to somebody who lives in New York City, but then you get to know them and you're like, wow, I can relate to them.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think that like you've actually gone on quite a few mission trips, like through the church, and how many different mission trips have you gone
on? I don't know like the exact number. I've probably been on maybe 10 different ones in the United States. Yeah. So like I've been to Portland, I've been to North Carolina, Louisiana, New Mexico. So I've been to New York. Yeah. But then I've been to Canada 2 different times, and then I've been to Malawi, Africa. So that was the farthest I've been. But a lot of my mission trips have been in the United States.
Really, your experience, and Kenzie too, and it reminds me of something. Like I hear this a lot from parents. They like say, I want my kid to experience more than I did, and I want them to like have more opportunities than I do. And I think I see that go a little bit of awry, because a lot of times they're talking about material things or money. Like, I struggled, so I don't want my kid to struggle.
Yeah.
I never had a vehicle like this, so I wanted them to have a nicer vehicle, or, and I think that we miss it a little bit, because I think that the growth is in the struggle. So if like you shelter your kids from ever struggling like you did, then you don't have that, you don't build that part of yourself where you can, overcome.
Yeah.
When I hear you talk about like these mission trips and then New York City and Malawi and all that, what I realize is what every parent really wants, or what I want, which is you to experience things that I was not unable to experience. And I have never been to Malawi. I've never been you've been to a lot more places than I have. And that's really in my heart what I wanted. I wanted y'all to be able to experience things that really can be life-changing. Do you think, like, to me, those things seem very life-changing?
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. Like, and it's so cool, because I grew up in like the best church with the best youth pastor, and he was mission-minded, and I would have never gotten to do those things if it wasn't for him. But it was life-changing because, first of all, like you mentioned, like I learned that like a lot about people that are different than me, that don't have maybe as much money, that don't believe the same thing as me, that grew up in a different place than I did. And it just like opened my eyes just to that, like everything's not just how I see it. But the biggest thing was just it opened my eyes to like the need for the gospel, and how like the gospel in itself, hearing about Jesus can change someone's life. And, I can do lots of good things in my life. I can, we've been on a few mission trips where we've like helped someone build something or given someone food. But ultimately I've realized that every trip I've been on is like, if we're not sharing the gospel, if we're not telling them about God, then it's like, it's not worth it. You know, like that's ultimately like our goal behind doing everything. And so that definitely changed my life. Like learning to share the gospel, learning to share how Jesus has changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, like, if you had to describe the difference of like, let's say sharing the gospel like locally, you know, like in the town you live in or in the area you live in, which you've done a lot by going to camp, to church camp and going to different things.
Yeah.
And then you're obviously ministering to people as y'all go on trips and y'all do mission trips.
Yeah.
So what's to you the biggest difference between like dealing with local and sharing locally and sharing like in a place like Malawi? What's the biggest difference?
In the U.S., there's no difference, really, because the one thing New York taught me is how to share the gospel in Oklahoma. That's exactly what New York taught me, because all I did for, like, my ministry, I guess, in New York was I went to work every day in the hospital. I went to get coffee with a friend. I played volleyball with random people, and that was my ministry. I did nothing out of the ordinary of what I would do in Oklahoma. Very normal things. And what I learned is that, like, what we're called to do in the most effective way to share Jesus is in your everyday life and what you're already doing. And so even though I think I would used to say that that's not how you do ministry, like you have to hold an event or something, but by far that completely changed my mindset. And the best way is literally just living your life and showing those around you your love for Jesus. But in Malawi, it's different. Just in the context of a lot of what we were doing was loving through serving. So, my home church, they built a church, a medical clinic, and like a feeding center in Malawi. And so we were able to serve in those. And through serving, through helping people's physical needs, we were then able to share the gospel with them. Versus in the U.S., it's not necessarily always the case. People usually have everything they need. Even though there are people that don't, but that is the majority of people. And so that's where I was able to like learn about nursing and why I wanted to be a nurse. So that's the biggest difference, I would say.
What, like my impression of if I went to Malawi, I've always thought this, it's like, first of all, I would think it'd be amazing, but I've always thought, man, I would probably be there and wish I'd brought more food with me or brought more snacks or brought more clothes or shoes to give away. And, you know, I wish you'd brought a bunch of stuff because we just seem to have an abundant here where we are. Like, even though you could be like middle class, but you still have a bunch. Like I think about how much food we throw away like daily, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's like, and yet people are starving and it's like, man, it'd be great if we could bring all this food with us and share it, you know? Did you have that feelings too? It's like, man, I wish I'd brought more, you know, stuff.
Yes, definitely. I think I just had this realization of like, oh my gosh, why did I even bring the stuff for me? Like I didn't even need all of that stuff, or, you know, and we brought a lot of stuff, but I remember we were like once a day they have like the feeding center so the kids come through. And, I was like serving. I was like, I really want to serve the food one day. And I kept wanting to do it. So finally I got to do it and I was so excited. And I was like in charge of the meat or something. I don't even know what type of animal it was, but it looked disgusting. And so I would put food on the plate and the lady would yell at me saying like, no, you're doing too much. And I was like, I'm barely doing anything. Anyways, so I realized why she did that, so that every kid could have food. But I was like, I don't know why I wanted to do that so bad. It was like the worst thing I've ever done. Like it was so sad. It was so, you know, and it just made me realize I'm like, I've never had to be hungry a single day in my life. I've never had to, you know, my mom has never had to make sure that, you know, only Taylor gets a little bit of amount of food so that all of the children can have food. Like that's never happened. You know, and before I left, I ended up giving like a lot of my clothes to one of the girls we were living with that's from there, just because I was like, I don't need this, you know, but they were wearing the same clothes every day. And so, yes, oh my gosh. And I came back and I was like, I ate all my food. You know, I was a lot more cautious of like all of that, of being thankful for what I have.
So now you're going to go work in New York City.
Yeah.
So now you've decided, I mean, you made this decision a while back that you were going to go work in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So you're leaving in a couple of weeks, and you're going to go live there. And you've gotten a job at the same hospital you did an internship.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's pretty amazing. So it's funny because you talked about the interview and you're like, I don't know how it went. And
Yeah.
obviously it went well.
Yeah, I guess so.
You got the job. What's your fears, or what are the things that make you nervous about that whole situation?
Definitely starting my job, just because I've never had like a real job, and this is a real job, I feel like. And so I'm nervous about that. I'm nervous about being like a nurse on my own. I'm like, I haven't done nursing in a long time, and so it makes me nervous, but I'll go through a training period, and like, I think everyone gets that nervousness when they start their first job, when they become a nurse for the first time. So that's definitely like my biggest anxiety, I think. I think that's the biggest thing. I still need to find a church. The first week I go there, I'm going to go and like look at different churches and find one to serve at.
Because you're going to be there like a week or two before you actually start working.
Yes, yeah, like 2 weeks.
And so give you a time to get just settled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most people, if you're not in nursing, they don't realize that nursing school really teaches you to pass the test. It's not saying you don't learn, but you really, in order to do nursing, you have to learn on the job.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it's like, that's where yours and Kenzie's road went different places, because she really took the test and started working.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas you didn't, because you're waiting on this opportunity and you were doing church internship.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really haven't started.
Yeah.
She started already. And so when you hear her story, she's in training and she's, and so I'm sure you've been ready to go to like do what you've been going to school for 4 years.
Yes. Yeah. I would say that outweighs like the nervousness, is like the excitement to finally know like what I'm doing and what like I feel like God's plan is. And yeah, do nursing. And even though I'm nervous about it, I've been like waiting for this, and I'm excited. Like I've been wanting to do this since I started college. And so
when I envisioned the hospital that you did your internship, because it's the same one you're going to go work in.
Yes, yeah.
And I envision it just because I guess New York City, I think of like the difference between like a hospital that's right here in the town we live in, which is fairly small hospital, and then Oklahoma City, where it's like huge.
Yeah.
I envision a huge hospital, like with thousands of people working there and busy. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, I would say it's similar to any hospital in like the Oklahoma City area, which is where we did a lot of our clinicals. I think when I came back, people thought, oh my goodness, like a New York hospital, like you probably learned so many more things or saw so many more things. And all that. It's like, no, like the patient care is the same. The patients are the same. I would say the only difference is like I saw Jewish patients and people from France, and like, I mean, you name it, like just different cultures, different languages. Besides that, same type of people with the same type of needs that there are in Oklahoma. And so it is a big hospital with lots of different units, lots of different people, but I would say it's very similar to like a big hospital here,
I think that if I was going to go work in nursing or healthcare, which I've been in healthcare, but in that capacity, I would definitely want to work at a big environment, because it just seems so much more like you learn so much more. Mm-hmm. It's like you're getting to see a wide range of like problems and wide range of diagnosis. And whereas if you live in a small town, it may be the same things over and over again. So
yeah.
I've always thought that would be, I always thought like ER and, because you've watched so many movies.
Yes. Yeah.
And, but I guess the ER and ICU are not kind of all that they're cracked up to be.
Yeah. I definitely learned, like, I think they're so cool, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I learned that I could not be in that environment. It's definitely like a specific type of person.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't just go work at any ER without some experience too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the biggest difference, I would say, from Oklahoma to New York. Like, I have friends that graduated and they went straight to the ER. But like, I could not go and work in the ER. There's very few units that I can just go and work on. And so you kind of have to work your way up a little bit there.
Yeah. What do you think, like 5 years from now, what do you think your career-wise would look like? just in your thought at this moment?
I'm hoping that I'll find like a unit I really like. You know, after talking with Kinsey and stuff, I'm like, oh, I think I would really like labor and delivery. So I feel like I could see myself doing that later. I don't know. I thought a little bit more about going to like getting my master's, maybe nurse practitioner school, but it's hard to think about that stuff right now because right now I'm like, I just want to be a really good nurse, you know? And so who knows, maybe some of that stuff later.
I'm back on so, and you have a place to live and you're going to stay with the same, tell me the group, is it the Baptist?
Yeah, it's the Metropolitan New York Baptist Association. So they have like a building, so I will be staying with them again. And it's like, yeah, so I'll be staying with like a bunch of other people.
Really relieves the worry about where you're going to live.
Yes.
And those things, which to me, like that scares me because I'm like, oh my gosh, where would you live? And you know,
yes.
all that very basic stuff is going to be taken care of by you living there.
Yes.
And seeing how that part is taken.
Yeah, normally I agree. I think that would be very stressful because it would be super expensive. And also like I wouldn't know anyone, but like I know a lot of the people that I'm living with. And like the couple that's in charge of the building, I like got to know them really well. And so it's like, I feel like if I needed anything, I could go to them. So that's like comforting to know.
Yeah. It is a little scary though, going by yourself. And,
yeah.
It's funny because I was talking to Kenzie, your sister, and she was, I was just saying, okay, we're going to New York City now because, you know, to visit. And I could hear it in her voice. She said, we have to go on our birthday, December, 3rd, because this will be the first birthday that I haven't spent with her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, I always like to throw it out there. You probably get tired of it, but I'm like, out of the twins, Taylor is the oldest by, I think, 44 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
44 minutes. But something unique that most people are very interested in, your mom actually had y'all one vaginally and one C-section.
Yeah.
That's why it's 44 minutes.
Yeah, people are always like, what? I've never heard of twins being that far apart.
Yeah, so you were delivered vaginally, and then Kinsey had her hand above her head.
Yeah, yeah.
And could not get her to come out. Went into C-section, and that's a pretty cool story when you think about it. It's like 44 minutes apart. And you guys look alike because a lot of twins don't necessarily look alike.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat. I want to talk a little bit about, you've definitely talked about like sharing the gospel and, all those things. It's like, I would kind of like to know, like, I'm very amazed and and I'm very proud of the fact that like you and Kinsey both, but where you guys have like, maintained your faith through college and really like it's become still important to you, and I would love to take credit for that. But the truth is that that's something that you guys have like always maintained. And, because you hear the stories, it's like somebody leaves home and they go to college and they don't think about God anymore, church anymore, any of it anymore.
Yeah.
And, that's something I've always been very proud of because nobody made you go to church. Nobody made you continue to be involved in the Baptist student ministries. Nobody made you guys do that. You did that on your own. And so I've always been very proud of that because, and it shows that it's something that it's, again, when it's forced, then you can tell because it's like, oh, if I have to, but in y'all's case, y'all wanted to, and you wanted to continue that. And so what do you think that is that you just, you mentioned Jance and the youth ministry at your home church. And do you think that played a lot of heart into it? Just, you may have somebody that's like fixing to go to college or, they're in college and it's like, they're struggling to make those kind of friends that really care about those things. But, you guys gravitated, it seems, to people who had the same, thought.
Yes. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
So I don't know. Yes, lots of like people have impacted. I think first of all, like, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to, understand because I feel like, I became a Christian when I was like in 3rd grade. So I was really young and I knew like I was a Christian, I was saved, but like not much changed in my life. But when I got to like middle school, I just like started realizing like, man, I'm like trying the friends, trying the sports, trying to my family. And I love those things, but like, I'm always disappointed, like they're just never going to fulfill me. And so I had to come to this like huge realization that like, man, everything else is worthless. And I think that was like a game changer for me, because once I truly experienced like true life with Christ, like a life lived for him, like I was like, I don't know how people live the other way. Like, not only do I want to live a life that's glorifying to God, but it's better. Like, it's so much better. And I just honestly, like, just seeing like that change in my life, I was like, I can't go back. But when it came to friends, like, I honestly, like, my friends are people that I went to church with and that love Jesus, that we went on mission trips together. I've been all around the country with my closest friends, and we've served the Lord together. And I think that was like the hugest difference, is like, that's where I was prioritizing my like time, my friendships, my relationships. And so like, I couldn't help but want to love Jesus more because the people around me love Jesus more too. Like, it was easy. And so because I prioritized that in high school, once I went to college, like, that was my number one priority, is that I'm going to find friends that love Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so immediately, like, that was my priority. And so because I wasn't looking like, oh, I'm going to go to class and hopefully find Christian friends like that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but my main goal was like, I'm going to find people that already love Jesus that I can serve with. And then hopefully then we can meet people in other areas. And then I would say Kinsey's a big influence too, because I've always had Kinsey. So like, she's always been that like accountability that we could like, we go to church together, we go on mission together, we talk about these things. And so those are definitely like the biggest influences.
Yeah. I think, you know this, and it's funny because, my phone pictures will come up on my phone, and it's like through the cloud, and I see a picture of like you guys when y'all were whatever age and you're at a birthday party, and and I'm like, oh, I forgot about them. They were, in other words, they're not around anymore. I don't see, but yet you guys have at least two friends that y'all have continued to be friends through all that. And I think y'all always be friends. Yeah. And, I think that's the kind of friends you were talking about. It's like, I think as you go through like elementary and junior high and high school, you have friends come and go. But then, you do have these ones that stick with you, and like you continue to be friends with them. Yeah. And I think part of it, and I don't know the answer, and I have really questions. Like, I think about my two friends from high school that I'm still friends with. It's like there was something deeper or better with them. Yeah. More real, maybe. More, I don't know. Yeah. More trusting. I don't know.
We talk about that, and I don't know exactly, but we talk about that a lot. We're like, I don't know why, like, because we talk about like, if we met today, we didn't know each other, would we be friends? We're like, I don't know if we would be friends. Like, quite honestly, like, we don't do the same things. We go to church and stuff, but like, besides that, I just don't know. But I'm like, I think there's something about like growing up, like they know, I know about their family. They know about my family. They know what my house is like. They know what my personality is like through every season of life, And then I think a big thing, like I said, is like, we traveled the world together sharing Jesus. It's like, you can't ever like take that experience from someone, like there's a huge difference from, oh, like I know them because of cheer, or I know them because of college, versus like, I just know this person because of life, So I guess I don't know what the answer is, but I definitely have seen like a huge difference in like those, like, I feel like that friendship, like you said, is going to last no matter what.
I tell you, I'll tell you something that you may realize later is that, just think about it. Like, one day you're going to get married possibly, and these friendships will be there longer than that marriage. Yeah. And they've seen you through all walks of life. And in order, like in a marriage, you have to build that over years and years and years. Think about it at this moment right now. Some of these friends have known you 20 something years. Yeah. That you're talking about. And they've seen it all, and they've seen you embarrass yourself. They've seen you, cry or whatever, the good and the bad. Yeah. And they're still friends. And so you're right. It's like builds this bond. And then I think you almost like, any relationship after this, you compare it kind of to that because it's like, you know what it takes to build this long-term relationship. So same thing. I don't know about you and them, but like my two friends, I fought.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of them fist fought. You know, I don't suggest that. But my point is we're still friends.
Yeah.
Even though we did have this fist fight.
Yes. Yeah.
Fight thing. It's probably boys and guys. But you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to worry. I don't, like if we get in an argument, I'm not going to have to worry about like, oh, we're going to be friends still.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not even really entered my mind.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's one of them, we don't talk as frequently as the other one. So I mean, there's been times I didn't talk to him for a year.
Yeah.
But when we get back together, it's just like, oh, just like we never left, you know?
There's definitely something like special about like the ability to do that because not all friendships are like that. Yeah. And that's something else is like, I've had to learn how to be like so intentional with those friendships. Like I've learned that like if I care about these friendships, I have to work hard for them, you know, and maybe that's another reason why is like, you know, my college friendships, for example, like I just, you know, we hung out because we were in college, but it's like, you have to like, you know, really make an effort. And so I think that definitely makes it, I think that's another thing about New York that makes me nervous. I'm like, oh, like I'm not going to be around these people all the time. But like you said, like a real friendship is going to last no matter how long you see them.
Well, I love the word, you know, and like that you said, intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that any relationships that's important, you have to be intentional. You know, there's been so many, you know, relationships where I wasn't intentional. And I'm like, I know now that I have to be intentional. It's like if I want another way to say it's like, if I want a good friend, I got to be one.
Yeah.
If I want to be a good husband, I got to be one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I want a good spouse, I got to be one, you know. All those things. If I want to be a good father, I've got to be one. You know? I've got to, that relationship is built on being intentional if you want it to do well, you know, and so many times we let life get in the way of being intentional.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, what I'm hearing is that I think it's more than that, but I think it's also based on a good foundation of like, you know, through what you're saying is that we talked about like church was important. Jesus was important. You know, that's the foundation through what was built in some ways. In other words, you saw definitely like a mutual something there.
Yes.
That it was very solid.
Yeah.
That will last through ups and downs and troubles and all that. You know what I mean?
No, that definitely makes a huge difference because like, yeah, like I said, I had friends that I cheered with and it's like, yes, that was like, we had fun. It was great to hang out with each other. But like the minute it went deeper, it was not there. And it was like, I can't have like a long lasting relationship with someone that, you know, can't talk about the most important thing. And so, yeah, no, that's definitely is they understand and they agree with like, we have the same beliefs. And it's like, I know that like I can trust what they say. I can ask for advice. Like, things like that.
Well, I think it reminds me is like, you can't be intentional with like, let's say 100 different people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to be like, it's probably not the right word to say, but it's almost like setting boundaries. It's like, I'm going to be intentional with these people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which may be my family, these family members, this friends, these, you know, because those are the most important that you feel like will last. Whereas if you're forced to try to be intentional with a large group of people, it just doesn't happen. You know?
Yeah, no,
I heard
definitely.
something, what is it, 150? Something like that, like back in the day, like I wouldn't say caveman days, but way back that like, I think it's 150, like no more than 150 people lived together, lived in the same community.
Yeah.
And it's because that's the amount that could be like really close, and anything outside that starts to become just acquaintances, just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think 150, again, I may be wrong on the number, but you get the point. It's like you have we talked about it during lunch. It's like your community, your people, your tribe, you know, whatever. And Emily, this is fun, interesting that we were talking about during lunch is that the different aspects of like, physical and spiritual and mental, that those communities and those tribes are so important. And it's like, that's what you're doing. It's like, you're starting to build that as you're young. And I'm still amazed by it in my life that I have two friends over 35 years. And it's like, how are we still friends?
Yeah.
You know, when I actually look at them, like, wow, we're still friends through the ups and downs and all the craziness. And it's like, but that's your tribe. Those are your people. You know, you have your people. And the sad part about it is like people come and go that were your part of it. Maybe they pass away or whatever, but it's like, man, that core group is so important. And then when you really don't have that, and you got to be intentional about it, it's like when you're talking about being intentional of like even going to church to be involved in the student ministries or whatever you're involved in, because that's what is your tribe and becomes your community.
Yeah.
If you don't have that community, you're really in a bad place.
Yeah.
Because when things go bad, you don't have somebody there. So. By the way, you know, your sister got married, and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? And I think most people would think, oh, you automatically one get married, then the other one's going to get married. But I absolutely loved your speech.
Thanks.
I think I'm not going to ask you to repeat it, but I think that you did a really good job.
Thank you.
I always knew this, but I was amazed by how articulate you were. Like, man, you were very clear and just a great speech. It was funny and heartwarming, and good job.
Thank you.
I just want to say that. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast. Anything I missed that you say, I really wanted to talk about that and he didn't talk about that?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. I know it's always weird. I'm going to do a podcast with my dad. But, I appreciate it. I've always wanted to do it with you, but, you know, just never had time with y'all being busy in school. And whatever, so the opportunity was there. I wanted to get you before you went to New York City.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. And for you guys listening, I just want to remind you, go to our website, evenoneless.com, and follow this podcast, Positively Undefeated, on your favorite podcasting app, and like us, review us, follow us. Taylor, are you following the podcast?
Yeah, I am.
Good job. You get to hear Taylor on there if you do. And then also about our event, just a reminder, on September 16th at 6 p.m. in Elk City, Oklahoma, we're going to have our introduction for our nonprofit event. There'll be lots of fun music. What else? Music, food, speaking, fun auction, stream live. Yes, it'll be fun. And by the way, you know, at that point, you know, there's opportunities to give. I mean, we're trying to make an impact in our community, and so thank you guys so much. Hope y'all have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Positively Undefeated. If there was something in this show that resonated with you, please share the show with your community. If you want this show delivered each Monday morning to your podcast app of choice, please subscribe or follow. And if you'd like to get a hold of Burl, please do so by going to burlstricker.com/contact.